Another meal in a jar. Come join me as I make some beefy bolognese. Welcome back, friends. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new here, I'm Catherine, the Aerogarden homesteader, and today it is another meal in a jar, or a convenience meal, whatever you want to call them. This time I am trying a beefy bolognese, which I guess is a spaghetti sauce, but that would probably be the American term for it. So that is what I am making today. I need to prep up my vegetables. So for a cup of celery, a cup of carrots, 3 cups of onions, 5 pounds of beef that I've got going over there on the burner. I have a large stock pot on a back burner. It's not heating up yet, but what I'm going to do is once I get all my vegetables cut, the next step is to actually get the vegetables going, so that as my beef gets done, I can transfer it over to the large stock pot and keep things moving. Because the problem with I don't have a really big frying pan. This is probably the biggest one I've got. That isn't that non-stick one that I think is actually starting to delaminate, so that's unfortunate. These things are kind of nice for chopping, but they're not that great for stirring things around because it just keeps it all in one layer. So keep that in mind if you see people raving about these. They're not all they're chalked up to be. You could probably get away with a potato masher and a wooden spoon, honestly. And my beef is still a wee bit frozen. Okay, there we go. Now I did put a tiny bit of oil in my pan because I didn't want anything sticking to it. As much as I try to keep the seasoning up on my cast iron, I don't do a very good job. And I just threw my carrot in there without measuring it. That's just awesome. So pardon me while I fix my error. Okay. That's a little better. Okay, well apparently 1 big carrot is not 1 cup. So I will need to go and track down another carrot. Okay, I don't normally peel my carrots. If I've got carrots that are in good shape, I just wash them and use them. But for canning purposes, it's best to remove the skin of anything that has been in the ground because that's where botulism comes from. It comes from the ground. So definitely peel and wash your stuff before pressure canning. Okay. That is a cup. That was about 2 carrots. I think it was about 3 or 4 stalks of celery, in case you're wondering. So I'm going to get this out of the way for a minute because I need to get the grease out of there. Okay, I don't know if you've seen that, I don't know, that weird TikTok video where people are like, oh, just put tinfoil in your sink and then you can just drain it right down there. Like, why? Then your sink is tied up until it, like, solidifies. Get a nasty old jar and just spoon it in, and then throw the jar out. I unfortunately live in an area that is so retarded they don't think glass is worth recycling, so I just reuse the glass in other ways if possible. So yeah, it's a little tedious, but I'm not trying to carry a heavy hot pot over to the sink, tying up my sink for who knows how long, because I don't know how long this is going to take. And yeah, I can just throw the whole jar out and it's less mess. I'm not clogging up my pipes or the sewer lines with lard, solidified fat, whatever. So just want to get as much of this out as possible. This will be a lather, rinse, repeat. I will obviously zip ahead once I get to the next step, but I have a bunch of onions and garlic to cut up. And this will need to move over to the, I don't know if you can see it, the large stock pot is on the back burner, so that is where this will move to once it is not pink anymore. Although I might have to put this on pause while I finish cutting everything else up because the vegetables need to cook for a certain amount of time. So the vegetables need to cook for about 8 to 10 minutes. So yeah, I probably started my meat too soon, but that's okay. Okay, let me see. So I can do 3 cups of onions with 3 onions. What are my chances of being wrong? Probably pretty good. Make sure I keep the measuring cup handy so I remember to measure it. Now when it comes to cooking, I don't normally measure out my ingredients. You know, I'll just use a whole onion, but for the pressure canning recipes, I do try to follow them a little bit more. You know, they really should give some wiggle room. I hate it when it's just 1 cup. 1 cup of what? Like 1 cup tightly packed, 1 cup loosely packed? Is it 1 cup minced? Because that takes up, you know, mincing something has no extra air space versus cutting something really large dice. You know, you don't get as much in there. So, you know, it's just, the recipes are kind of ridiculous and they're just too rigid. And I think that's why a lot of people they just branch out on their own. Oh, well, you know, I did it this way once and it worked, so I'll just keep doing it that way. And they need to readjust the recipes a little bit and just say, you know, hey, put in, you know, about this much. Give people a little wiggle room. Okay, well, that's my rant for the day. I'm going to turn that off. Because apparently, it's done. I am just slow at cutting, apparently. Let's see. But yeah, I was trying to figure out if there was an alternative to some ingredients in the recipes that I plan on making for this, you know, I'm just trying to do a whole bunch of convenience meals. So I wanted to know if there were some, you know, things I could swap out. I do not like mushrooms. Can I swap out the mushrooms for something else? Well, I haven't figured that one out yet. It is apparently okay to decrease something, but it's not okay to increase something. Apparently it was also okay to swap out wine for juice or for broth, but it's like they don't give very good swapping guidelines. I don't know. I hope I like this recipe because this is definitely, you know, everyone's got a family spaghetti sauce that they like, and it sure would be nice if they were, you know, oh, it's okay if you add a little bit of this or a little bit of that, you know, make it your own a little bit, but not this, my word is the law. So we're following the recipe this time, although I hope my wine is okay because I don't have any beef stock handy. So we are definitely in the rainy season. It has been raining quite a bit lately. We don't get rain most of the year, and then we just get rain for like a short window. Might get a kick out of this, so I was trying to plan out some of these convenience meals. This is not the recipe I had planned for today. I forgot to soak my beans last night, so yeah, I'm going to have to delay that recipe. It's okay. So you might actually get this recipe after the one about the beans, so now you'll know. Okay, so it looks like 3 medium-sized onions might make 3 cups. So we'll see in a minute. Now you can keep your onion skins and all that in a bag in the freezer, and then you can throw it in when you make stock. It's a great way to sort of use something you are going to throw away to make something good. Although if you use as many onions as I just did, you may not want to save all of them. Okay, yep, 3 onions, give or take. Probably could have gone with a slightly smaller one. Okay, that is a big old bowl of stuff. I want to get the garlic going. Calls for 6 cloves. Now I had 2 little ones, so I have 7 here, but I have 2 little ones, so I'm calling it 6. Again, like 6 cloves of garlic. Tiny ones, massive ones, like what if I have elephant garlic? They really should come out with a book with the weights in it, because I know a lot of people don't like using weights. But if you want to put a recipe that says don't make any changes, and then you want me to put in a cup of something, that just seems weird. Cups are so subjective. Okay, I am going to get the vegetables going. There's no need to wait for the garlic. I don't want to put the garlic in right away, even though it says to do that, because I don't want my garlic to burn, even if it's accidentally. So, which could happen. Okay, well, I think they're assuming I am using the same pot with the beef fat in it, and I'm not. So I'm just going to put in a tiny bit of oil just to get this going. That's pretty much what I'm doing. I will just have to keep stirring that. Oh, I broke my favorite wooden spoon the other day, and I was devastated. Oh. I actually need a nice big one for this pot. This one's just barely big enough for it. Okay, so I feel like my vegetables are soft enough to move on to the next step. So I definitely want to get my garlic in here. So we are at that point where I don't think it'll burn because it doesn't have too much longer to go. It does call for a tablespoon of basil and a tablespoon of oregano. So that's quite a bit. I hope this is not overly strong. I don't know that herbs need to be bloomed in oil, but that's what it's calling for, so that's what we're doing. So I'm going to give this just a couple seconds, and then I need to get the tomato paste in. I'm actually going to turn this down because I don't want to burn the tomato paste to the bottom. I want to caramelize it to the bottom. So I have a bunch of these, and I'm going to need my can opener. Interesting thing, I found these on Amazon. It was just like somebody must be making them again. Yeah, get that going. My meat is still cooking actually. I'm just moving on to this part so I could start adding meat to the pan. Okay, so that should have been a cup and a half, because these are 4 ounces. Don't think that's sticking to the bottom like it's supposed to. I'm going to put the heat back up a little. Just keep an eye on it. It is supposed to stick to the bottom and brown. Alright, that is certainly looking a lot better. I'm going to let it go a little longer. That is very strong on the basil. Ah, there we go. That's what we're looking for. A little bit of browning to the bottom. Not burning, but browning. Okay, so I need a cup of red wine. I'm using a Merlot. It said dry. So, let me double check. Yes, that was a cup. I'm going for a cup. There we go. I'll turn that down a bit. Now I want to make sure I deglaze the bottom of the pan because those little caramelized bits are what we're looking for. That's part of the flavor. Okay. And I need a quarter of a cup of balsamic vinegar. This is a weird ingredient to add to spaghetti sauce. I have never added, I've added white vinegar, so I guess it's not that weird. There we go. Okay, so let's get those bits loosened up. Okay, so I still have some beef going, but it says to add the beef now. I'm going to get that in. Then I can add in the tomatoes, and at least get that cooking down as well. I think it'll be okay to chuck in some meat after the fact. So let me get some of these cans. Okay, I got a funny story for you. So a canning inventory is only as good as the person keeping it. I swore I had cans of crushed tomatoes downstairs, and I couldn't find them. So either they got used, or I put them somewhere and I can't find them. I'm using some, this called for diced, I'm using whole. One of the reasons why I don't really like using canned tomatoes is because I do a much better job of peeling my tomatoes. Like, really? And there's cores and everything in here. Ugh, like, it's not like this is a no-name brand either. It's just frustrating. Okay, well, it's kind of late now. I'm not going to be able to pull all those skins out. They're just going to have to get smushed in. Okay, so it calls for 3 quarts of, again, it should be diced tomato. I don't have diced. I was going to use crushed because I thought crushed would have been okay. So yeah, I'm just using whole. We're just going with it. And of course these are not quart-sized cans, so I'm probably going to have to put in half a can to get the amount it calls for. Okay, well that's at least 3 of those. So I need to break these up a little. I probably should have just stuck some scissors in the can and just chopped them up a little, but I think that enough vigorous stirring and some chopping will help break it down. Well, there you go, about half a can. So it should be my 3 quarts of tomatoes that it calls for. So I'm just waiting for that last bit of beef to cook up. Okay, and then I will have to simmer this for 15 minutes or so. It says until it thickens. So I guess it depends on how high you simmer it. Smells good. I hope it tastes good. Okay, the last of the beef is done. I'm going to get that scraped in. I'm going to try to not get all the fat, but just the meat. Too much fat in a canned product can sometimes cause a seal failure because, you know, fat's slippery. So, just something to be aware of. Well, it's a shame to lose some of that brown stuff on the bottom, but it's going to be real fun to clean up. Okay, there we go. So we just need to simmer for 15 minutes and then I can get it going in the jars. In the meantime, I will be getting my jars in the canner and start warming those up so they will be ready to accept this very hot spaghetti sauce. I will also give it a taste. I noticed the recipe did not call for any salt whatsoever, which I thought was weird. I mean, wine isn't salty. Balsamic vinegar isn't really salty. So I don't know where the salt's coming from. It should have a little bit of salt, but I guess we'll see. And I think that if any of the tomato skins float up to the top, I will pick them out. Oh, that's horrible. I think Name Brand would do better than that. Well, my jars are hot. It has been 15 minutes, probably a little bit more than that. I don't know if that's as thickened as they wanted it, so I'm just going with it. So I'm going to get my jars out of the canner one by one. I will fill them up and we'll see how this goes. The processing time for this is 75 minutes. It's probably a good thing I checked because I assumed it was 90. Most things, I don't know, most things with meat in it are 90. This was 70, so yep. And that was for quarts. I did double check that. It's the usual 1-inch headspace. And it is supposed to make 5 quarts, but my pot is reading at the 6-quart line, so I guess we'll see. I do have an extra jar over there just in case. Make sure we wipe the rim. So funny story, the only wine I had in the house for this was 2-buck chuck. And that was from my before kids time, when 2-buck chuck was still about $2. I don't know what it costs now because I have not bought wine in forever. And I went to the store and I'm like, you know, maybe I should get something that's a little more recent than, I don't know, like 15 years ago. Yeah, wine. I couldn't find just the small little ones for, you know, like single serve for a reasonable price. They all just seemed like I could buy a whole bottle of wine for that price. I might as well just open up my 2-buck chuck that I've had around forever. So I did. I opened up the 2-buck chuck. The cork got stuck, but the wine was fine. So I went with it. Although now I have a bottle of wine in my fridge that I really don't have a use for. So I'm probably just going to have to make another batch of spaghetti sauce, I guess. Well, this is jar 6, so I hope I can fit it all in there. Otherwise, I guess I'm having spaghetti for dinner. Alright, looks like I am having spaghetti for dinner. Definitely debubble. I've seen some nice pockets of air down on the bottom that would have stayed there if I hadn't used the debubbler. Hey, there we go. So, I will show you how this turns out when it's done. Okay, I'm going to whip up a quick lasagna. I made a bechamel cheese sauce. I just added in some grated cheese that I had. It's like a white American. So use what you have. I added some water to this sauce just because I am going to use uncooked lasagna noodles and the water in there will help the noodles cook. Now, making a lasagna is pretty easy. Put in a little sauce on the bottom to help prevent the noodles from sticking. And then at that point it's just a matter of layering everything up. So in the grand scheme of things, spaghetti sauce can be used for a lot of stuff. When I was growing up, my mother would make a massive pot of spaghetti, using only 1 pound of hamburger, I might add, so it was not on the meaty side, but she would make a mega huge pot of spaghetti, and we would eat that. First we'd eat it as spaghetti, then of course we would eat it as lasagna, and then we would actually eat it as chili. So if you take spaghetti sauce, you add kidney beans to it. I hate kidney beans, by the way, but if you add kidney beans to it and a little bit of cumin, it really changes the flavor of it. So I kind of recommend it. It's a great way to stretch a meal. Okay, probably should have put the wet sauce on first, but it probably doesn't matter. So I am using a loaf pan. I am hoping that the amount of cheese sauce and pasta in a quart jar are enough to fill this up and make a nice, mostly single meal lasagna. I'm okay having a little bit of leftovers, but sometimes it seems like when you make a lasagna, you end up with leftovers forever if you don't have enough people eating them. So it's looking like it's about, these are not very wide pasta noodles, so it's looking like it takes 2 per layer. And I'm breaking off about a little more than an inch. Just throw some of the little pieces in there. Okay, well I probably could have done a slightly better job dividing the pasta up, but it was approximately at 1 cup per layer. Now I am going to top it with a combination of mozzarella and I'm going to go track down some Parmesan somewhere, wherever that may be. My cheese is frozen. Okay, well I'm not going to add too much of this because not everyone likes it, but add to your family's preference, of course. And I will show you what this looks like once it comes out of the oven. So I feel like the spaghetti one is going to be pretty versatile. I bet you anything if I added kidney beans to that, which I hate kidney beans, but you know, if I added beans to it and served it on rice with toast, buttered toast, it would probably taste exactly like my mother's chili. So I am going to cover this. I'm going to put this in a 350-degree oven. I'll leave it covered for about 45 minutes, take the cover off for about 15 minutes, and that's how it's going to go. I probably just want it to get to 360, or not 360, 160 for an internal temperature, and the noodles should feel cooked. So it might take longer than an hour, but who knows? We'll just go by ear. So lasagna is not a photogenic meal, but this is how it turned out. It tastes wonderful. I think that the beefy bolognese is going to be a pretty useful, versatile meal to have in my pantry, so I think I will be making more of it. In fact, I actually made more of it, but I hope you found this video useful. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you do make this, let me know how you thought of it and any other uses you can think of that might be fun to try. And thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you next time on the Aerogarden Homestead.